Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. My name is Rashmili Vamula, and I'm the Director of Operations for Digital Page. I am honored to be introducing an amazing panel this afternoon featuring 6 Capgemini leaders who are making an incredible impact in all various businesses as well as communities. So I'm actually going to first off introduce Arindam Chowdhury. He is the moderator for this panel, and from there he'll take it on to the panelists. So Arindam, he is the Vice President, Head of Banking and Capital Markets within Insights and Data. He is also an incredible sponsor and advocate for this weekend's hackathon, so super thankful for his support. Hackers, a quick plug for you. 4 out of our 6 panel participants are judges for various tracks who have volunteered their time to also be at a networking event right after this session. So make sure to join and pick their brains a little bit. Some general housekeeping before we get started. If you do have a question, please use the chat feature within YouTube, and one of our chat moderators will be able to get to your question throughout the session. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right in. I'd like to pass it off to Arindam and all of our participants.
Thank you very much, Rashmili. Good afternoon, hackers, and thank you for joining this afternoon. I know you guys are all probably busy, hacking away and building the apps and I'm super excited, as I'm sure the other panelists are, to see what you have come up with. So again, like Rashmili, I'm honored to be with this panel. I deeply admire all the panelists who are going to join me today, and we're going to have an open conversation about what got them here, what are some of the challenges that they faced, right, all of that. But then to start with, I'd like to really introduce themselves and give a slightly deeper introduction, if you will. Take a minute, tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you here. So we'll start off with you, maybe Rajesh. Can't hear you, Rajesh. I can't hear you. Hisam, maybe Hisam, can I hear you?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Hisam. So Hisam, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, my name is Hassam Aslani. I lead the AI/ML solutions for insurance and health as part of Capgemini. And it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. Look forward to having a great conversation.
Thank you, Hisam. I'll just keep going clockwise. Saurav?
Yeah, maybe I can go in next. Hi, everyone. My name is Saurav Banerjee. I'm a part of Capgemini's Insights and Data Practice, and I'm really focused on delivering data-driven business transformation for life insurance clients globally. So like as Hizam actually drives the AI/ML capabilities for all insurance, I'm really focused on a part of the insurance sector, which is more like the life insurance sector. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurav. Tej?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to reconnect with you guys. I've interacted with some of you yesterday as part of the panel we had with Y-Green, and excited to share more stories about my journey at Capgemini and my journey in general, 25 years into financial services industry. Out of that over 11 years, I've been with Capgemini, and in current role, my focus with Arindam and extended team is driving sustainability for financial services customers. So that is what we are passionate about, and that is what we are driving. And one of the challenges you may have seen is around sustainability. So we are excited and looking forward to interactions with you. Thanks, Arindam.
Thank you, Tej. Wallace?
Hi, I'm Wallace Chen. I'm leading the blockchain practices in Metaverse at Capgemini. I have been in the data space for over 20 years. Prior to Capgemini, I was with Citibank. I have done pretty much all aspects of the data, from data engineering to analytics to data science to graph analytics. So I guess I'm dating myself, but now I'm working on the blockchain projects, which is very interesting, and I can tell you all about it.
Thank you very much, Wallace. And
you guys can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I feel like I've accomplished something already. Hey guys, my name is Rajesh Iyer. I've been in the financial services industry for, I think I'm the oldest of the group, about 27 years. at Capgemini for about 4 years, and I look after AI and ML for banking and capital markets and property and casualty insurance, life insurance, and health insurance. I'm very excited to be part of this panel.
Awesome. Thank you. So, team, as I said, right, we have a super panel, and leaders that I look up to, all of them, right? And I'm sure we're gonna hear some very interesting insights. But let's start off with maybe a more let's say leadership related question, if you will, right? So all of you are leaders in your space, right? But then you have all had careers of varying length, but I would say 20 years, 15 plus years, what have you. So what I would like to learn more about is, was there a point in time, right, where you transitioned into becoming a leader? And so think about it, like what happened and when did you become a leader, and what led to it? So I'll start off in the opposite direction now, maybe start off with Wallace. Hey, Tej, you went like left side up, so
Yeah, what did you do, Tej? Okay.
Hi. So I very much believe that leadership is a mindset. I think the moment that you choose to lead is when you become a leader. I actually got into the leadership roles when I kind of did not like some of the things that's happening around me. I don't really like the pace it's going, for example, or that we're not thinking certain things and connecting the dots. So I decided to take it upon myself to start thinking things differently, pulling together a different team. And solve the problem from a different perspective, or I guess for a more a female perspective at times. And I think there are value in
technical problems. What's a live stream without a technical problem?
Yeah, part of life. So
Part of life. All right, we'll let Wallace come back in. I think I've lost stage also, but I'm sure he's trying to get back in. So maybe I'll go to Hisam. Right, same question, Hisam.
So yeah, I think it's as other panelists were talking about. It's like a gradual, I would say, growth that you feel that okay, you can be a part of a team, but the team also will will get directions, and that kind of leadership aspect of it coming to the picture. I think it's to me, I think it's more natural, if you will, like when you are part of a team and the team will accept you as a leader, as a person, that they come to you and they ask you how you can support them. And that has been very exciting. I have always enjoyed that experience, and the more I have practiced that, and the more I have received inputs about how best we can do this, that has been a very integral part for me, and that was the transition that I remember in my journey, in my career.
Oh, very good. And I'm sure we'll hear more about some of those leadership lessons that you learned along the way, right?
Yes.
So maybe a little slightly different twist on the same question. So Rajesh, you're a leader in AI and machine learning, one of the more advanced skills that is out there, right? So maybe talk to us a little bit about what attracted you to the space, and how did you establish yourself as a leader in such an already advanced space?
So I have like a really weird kind of journey. I actually have an undergrad in quantitative skills, computer science, numeric analysis, and so on and so forth. And then I went to law school, thinking I wanted to be a patent lawyer. So that was like a little bit of a different journey for me. And then I actually started in insurance and claims, and I was like claims attorney for a while, and then I got moved very quickly through a series of more expansive roles. And I think that was a very interesting thing, because what I realized is that sorry guys, it's again technical challenges. So as I was actually moving up, one of the things that I realized is that for some of the more older technologies, I kind of learned more from people that were senior to me and passed it along to people that were junior to me. But then as I moved higher and higher, one of the things that I realized, and more into the knowledge management space, is the operations space, what I realized is that there was more information coming from people below me than people above me, which is like a really weird sort of epiphany for me, because I think that's also kind of ties. It's my mic, so just bear with me for a second. So what I think I found out sort of dovetails in with your question about when did you realize that you're a leader, is when I kind of made that transition from understanding what my leaders wanted me to do and passing it below to understanding what my direct reports knew and their direct reports knew and passing it upwards. I talk about this joke all the time. Back in the day, it's kind of like the CEO knew a little bit about things and they passed along 90% of what they knew to their underlings. They passed along 90% of what they knew to their underlings. And by the time it got to the analyst, they knew almost nothing at all about what the business was trying to do and so on. And I think it's really weird in the knowledge economy because it's actually reversed right now. And I can think of a situation where for a CEO, he's probably standing, hovering around an analyst trying to find out if he made a bonus, right? So it's a I'll fix it at some point, but it's very easy to be a leader if you actually switch to this new paradigm where you kind of understand that you can learn a lot from people that work for you. So you switch from this control and command mechanism to a more curiosity mechanism. I think that's kind of like a great way to be a leader. It's also very natural if you're curious and if you start listening to people that work for you, it's sort of natural to be respected by them as well. It's like, at least that's my perspective.
That's a very interesting perspective, right? And I think part of the reason why we are here today and why we are doing this hackathon is really again to learn from the community, right? Because there are ideas out there in the community that we definitely believe that we can learn from, and this panel and many other panels that we are having is our effort or our we're trying to give back as well, right? And hopefully the community can take something from these conversations. It's very, very interesting, Rajesh. So just carrying on the same similar theme, I'm just going to add a little more color. So Saurav and Tej, right? The next question is for you guys. So you guys are leaders, but then you if I were to guess, right, you are a good blend of technology and strong domain, right? So you kind of veer towards a particular domain, sort of. If I were to guess, maybe you were more technology and then later domain, and then Tej is probably the reverse, right? More domain and then later into technology, right? So how important has it been for you to be affiliated with a particular domain, and what drove you in that direction? And did that help in your leadership journey?
Yeah, so maybe I will go in first because again, Tej might get turned by 90 degrees, right?
Yeah.
So I think both are very, very important, right? So if you look at the success of a particular company, right, or success of a particular initiative, it is not a single skill that makes a project or a company successful, right? So one is the domain skills, because it's very critical to understand the business and what they're trying to do, right? So the way a retail company treats a customer, or the needs that a customer has from a retail company, is very different from the needs a customer has from an insurance company. So when I am actually working for a client, and if I am focused on a particular set of clients who are selling insurance or retail, and if I really understand the domain and the business well, I can understand the needs of CXOs who are beyond technology, right? So beyond CDO or beyond the CIO. So I can actually empathize with the CMO or maybe the distribution officer and what their business problems are. And then the approach that I have always taken in my life is to take a working backwards mechanism. So to start with a business problem of a particular industry and then work backwards to fathom that what kind of technology is going to solve that problem. So that has always been my approach, right? Now this is how I do it today. But when I started my career, definitely, Arindam, as you were saying, right, it was technology first and then domain. So the good thing is, because I started as a technologist to begin with, I already knew the different nuances or the spread of technology. And then once I learned domain, I could easily do this working backward philosophy, right? So I knew that these are the technologies that are at my disposal. Now I know the business problem, and I can really work backwards and not get misdirected by the plethora of technologies that we have. So I think it has been a great journey. Either ways, it's fine, right? So you can start with technology, move into a domain, or you can start with a domain, move into a technology. But I think to become a successful leader, it's very important to have a balance between the two, right? You cannot just be a technologist or just be a domain person to deliver the value to the end client, right? So people still can. Oh boy, my Siri went off. But anyways, so that's what I'm saying, right? So Siri is trying to understand what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying, right? So there are people who are extremely focused on technology or extremely focused on domain, and that is also a very good skill set because they are very deep into this, right? So say for example, Rajesh is very deep into AI and things like that, right? But then there are a set of people like me and Tej who actually bring everything together, right? So we are the orchestrators, we are the workflow, which bring everything together, who manages the show and ultimately delivers the value to the client. So that's where I will pause.
Oh, very good, very helpful, sort of. Thank you. And then Tej, maybe you can help us understand your perspective because you took a little bit of the reverse journey, if you will.
Yeah, interesting. Arindam and I always talk about it, am I right? I think 2 years or 2.5 years into insights and data. So, now things at least I get to know firsthand, and at least, getting to know even Arindam and I, when I talk about it, he said, now you're becoming a technologist. And this is funny. All my life or most of my life, I've spent working either for the bank, at the bank, at a Wall Street. I came from Merrill Lynch. Before that, spent many years in different banks. Uh, and then when I joined Capgemini, most of my time I was part of the business consulting or capital markets consulting practice. That's what I did. So it was less about technology. But when I joined this group, Insights and Data, this is where I feel that blending knowledge of technology and business together. So that means going back to what Saurav you were saying, that knowing the problem. So always go from right to left. If you know exactly what you're going to deliver, what your business objective is, and if you understand that objective, and then get to the solutioning and then try to build it out, that's when it's a win-win for everyone. So I feel that as a technologist, just rushing into solutioning or building something, or somebody's asking you to build this module, you blindly, without understanding what business problem it's going to solve, start building into it or start running towards it, it's not going to help, because then you will be short-sighted. So it's always good to blend these two things. Always ask questions that, what is this solution I'm trying to create is going to solve? Is it going to be towards, like the challenges we have, right? One around DeFi, the other one is around sustainability. So what type of solution I'm creating and what business problem it can solve? So I feel that it's important, knowing business and then trying to get to the solutioning of it. And that's where win-win is.
No, absolutely, Tej. And I think, I mean, even when I'm talking to, folks in the organization, some of the next generation technologies or next generation talent, right? But what I always ask them to do is, try to connect the activity that you're doing to the outcome that is going to deliver, right? Because, it always helps you become smarter, right? Understanding what you're delivering and how it is going to impact, let's say, the end consumer or what have you, right? Because everything is kind of connected, and you just need to figure out that connection for yourself, which will make you much smarter. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's a good, I guess, segue into my next topic, which is, the like succeeding in a consulting world, if you will, right? And I'm gonna tee it up with maybe a question to Hisam and then to Wallace, right? So you guys, have been in the industry for the longest time, and then you have moved into consulting, recently. Hisam, you've been around a little longer. Wallace, you just joined recently. So any reflections on, what are the differences between industry and consulting, right? And what are maybe some of the pros and cons of each, if you will? So Hisam, you can go.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. That's actually my favorite question. I was actually telling some of my colleagues recently that I wish I had joined Capgemini earlier in, in part of my journey, because, when I was in the industry, I picture myself as somebody who is looking for the answer of a question. Like I felt like something is missing and I didn't know what it is, and when I joined Capgemini, then I understood that, it is this perspective that I was looking for, like perspective over the industry, how it is working, like which direction it is going, and how best, I can help the industry players in their journey toward, adopting data and analytics for business. So I think the way I see it is that in the industry, usually you want to kind of focus on a certain area. Like for example, you might be supporting advanced analytics for claims in a PNC insurance company. Maybe you're even supporting a line of business. It could be, for example, workers' compensation, or you could be like in commercial lines, and but you are within that company, so very much operating within that culture. If the company maybe is not so much keen on investing in technologies, it would be very, very difficult to essentially try to bring that culture out. So you have to be a lot more patient. But when you are part of a a technology consulting company, you gain this perspective working with colleagues over the over the whole trend of the industry, where it is heading, and identifying. In fact, we have this research that has been shared broadly about data masters, like the companies who are know better to use their data and how they can have profitability. So that has been my experience, like really in when you are part of a technology consulting company, you can better influence the industry, especially in the financial industry and the insurance and health, where there is a journey toward migrating to the cloud, modernization. So clients would love to know some of the success stories, how they can better adopt these technologies, what works for them, what doesn't work. So definitely I feel a lot closer to how I want to influence the industry. But again, it's I would say person by person dependent. Some people would love to kind of perhaps do the same within one specific company. So that's also definitely something that is very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh,
And
definitely.
I
Yeah, go ahead,
agree
Wallace.
because I think when you're working in the industries, you tend to interact a lot more with the boots on the ground, right? The folks that's in operation, the folks in front office, back office, a lot of the business people that you get to interact on a daily basis, and you do learn a great deal from those folks to help you understand the business, and that translates into bringing fresh thinking into how to solve business problems. But I personally really love the consulting piece because it's just moving at a much faster pace. I think, when you're a consultant, you get to be exposed to a lot more different technologies, and a lot of them are nascent technologies that have not been widely adopted in the field. So you get to be the pioneer of a lot of these things and try out different options. So I really love that aspect of consulting.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Hisam and Wallace. That definitely makes sense. So I just add, like, my own 2 cents into the mix, right? I've never worked in the industry. I've always been in consulting in my entire career. And then what I found useful is in consulting, you get to see like many different clients' problems, right? And you see, like, so for example, if I'm dealing with banks, I'm dealing with co-ops, I'm dealing with community banks, regional banks, global banks, tier ones, tier twos, fintechs, the whole gamut, right? So as a consultant, you're able to operate across that whole gamut, and then you are able to bring unique solutions to your customers' problems. Okay, so what customers value from you as a consultant is the ability to bring in this outside in perspective, because you in the industry you tend to get focused on one problem, and within a certain constraints, if you will, you think in a much more narrower fashion, as opposed to as a consultant you get to think and bring in a much more outside in thinking, right? That's been my experience. So just continuing on the theme of consulting and leadership, my next question is, and this has a little bit of background, right? So our CEO Ayman, at one point a long time ago, actually, he had said that our ambition is to be the leader for leaders, right? So what that means is, we are leaders, but we also work with the leaders in the industry. So the top banks, the top insurance companies, and so on, right? So in the context of consulting, so you guys talked about being leaders, and what drives leadership behaviors and so on. But in the context of consulting, how do we establish ourselves as leaders for our clients, right? And if you could take an example and walk through it, and I'm going to ask you, Rajesh, right? Because I think you have quite a few examples in the recent past that you could talk us through, and then we'll go around the table. Can't hear you.
Rajesh, it's your mute button this time, not your microphone. You are on mute. I can see that. Unmute yourself.
Sorry.
There you go.
All right. So it's really sort of interesting, right? When we started talking about it, we talked about how AI is deep and not across things. And I think this actually, from a consulting angle, it's very important to understand that the AI piece is just part of the big picture. From a consulting standpoint, I think, like Arindam was saying, it's not about gathering insights. It's actually about driving impact. And in order to do that, there's just a lot of work that we need to do in terms of going and working, whether it's on the insurance side or the banking side, understanding the end-to-end picture. And it's kind of delicious when you know that you understand the end-to-end and how your particular solution is actually going to drive the end-to-end. So it's more than just your solution. So just going in, understanding the context. One of the examples that I can think of right now is the product development lifecycle at mid-size, I would say Fortune 500, not a mid-size, but Fortune 500 insurance company. And basically, in order to go from where they are to where they need to be, there are some issues that are like data issues. There are some issues that are like AI issues. There are some issues about how do you actually incorporate that AI stuff into rate making. There are some issues about how you can set strategy. So going in and understanding that end to end, I won't bore you with all the details, is very important. And it's very different in consulting, even from when you actually work in like a client. So in a client situation, what happens is I'm actually just part of the big chain, and it's different when I actually go in there, because I get to talk to everybody in the company from end to end. The same thing on the banking side as well. So we do these exercises all the time. While I'm involved in a deep space, the applicability of the deep space is actually, I got to figure out the insight in one piece and then actually apply it across the spectrum. So that's one angle of it. The other angle of that is basically looking at insights that are different parts. So there's insights that can happen in pricing. There are insights that can happen in. I'm so sorry, guys. I have to actually switch microphones. There's insights that can happen in marketing. There are insights that can happen in sales. AI also has a very large part in actually bringing all those insights together. It's not about seeing what happens if I change something in pricing, but really accumulating the effects across. And I'll stop after this example because let me actually switch microphones. But AI has a very big part to play, which is a little different than what we've talked about before in terms of basically accumulating the effects of insights in pricing, insights in marketing, and all that kind of stuff in order to actually drive strategy, right? So that's what I would basically say, that there's many ways of actually thinking about consulting. One way of thinking, I'm going to get after this last, maybe it only lasts for about 30 seconds. But basically there's, you can actually get consulting help in a very particular area, but then you really have to think about what you can do from an end-to-end standpoint. Otherwise, whatever you do in a particular area is all going to be not for naught, right? Guys, I'm having some issues. Let me switch mics while Arvind goes to somebody else.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, maybe Tej, you can talk a little bit about that, right? Same question.
Absolutely. It's an interesting question, am I right? And Arindam, you brought interesting point. Top down, our CEO was making the statement that, leaders of leaders. So how do we go about it? So definitely we work with leaders, and I can take, some of the public examples, maybe outside of FS world, and then maybe in the financial services, I'm not sure if I can name some of the client names, but, I will broadly describe them. So if I have to just name something public domain, take example of Volvo. Volvo is a international car company. Capgemini, and they are famous for being the first one in the industry. Like in 2017, they came out and they said that they will stop building or manufacturing cars with gasoline engines, and they were the first one out there, leaders out there. And fast forward a few years into it, Capgemini was their strategic partner. Chose to work in their journey to them becoming sustainable, right? So this is a leading company, auto manufacturers coming out and making a bold statement in days where people didn't believe them, and Capgemini becoming their partner, strategic partner in driving that journey. Now let me, turn that around into financial services. And some of us, we already know, may not be able to say the name of the customers here, but there is a large, mega global asset manager based out of US. Few years back, they were looking at creating additional ways of generating revenues into their business. So imagine when you talk about asset managers, these are asset managers who create funds like mutual funds. And what they call it out, they describe them as a engine. That was their engine one. Engine one is that is what they manufacture. Engine one is what produced most of their revenues. When they were looking at creating additional ways of expanding that revenue, they partnered with us. They partnered with Capgemini. We kind of did, 2.5, 3 years of program with there. We helped them create Engine 2 and 3. Engine 2 was completely innovative way of extending some of their products and services, and what we call it as a, their internal IP, intellectual property as a service, creating and extending directly for financial advisor, or creating something for direct to consumers. So there are ways where we engaged with them, starting from, even ideating some of these products, and then converting and realizing those products by building solutions and technology platform and data to support that. And all of that we were able to do because, the way you described them, right? Leaders for leaders. So this is where, a leading asset manager, when they wanted to kind of go out and build something, we partnered with them in hand-holding throughout the journey, hand-holding throughout the marketplace. And then the third thing or final thing, what I would want to highlight is one way we do it, and very effectively we do it. And, most of the leaders on this call are in the, you and I, we kind of, talked about and publishing, and we have done some of the thought leadership publication earlier this year. But Capgemini as a company, we do a lot of thought leadership through our world reports. We do thought leadership through white papers. And that is something differentiates us. So that means having a point of view, communicating your point of view in form of some sort of white paper or thought leadership, and then engaging with customers, engaging with leaders to at least get their perspective, and then expanding and collaborating. That is the way to move forward. Back to you, Arvind.
Thank you. Thanks, Tej. No, I think all those points, make a lot of sense, right? So now let's get a little deeper, right, into this whole question about strategic leadership for clients. So let's say we have done all this, right? So we have a presence in the industry, we have thought leadership, we are acknowledged for our thought leadership, and then new client engages us, right? And it could be in the area of AI, ML, blockchain, what have you, right? It's a new relationship though, right? So you don't know the people on the other side of the table. You have interacted with them through the whole kind of proposal process or what have you, but then you have very little time to kind of prove yourself and establish your credibility, right? That's one of the unique challenges of consulting. So any thoughts? Maybe this time I'll go with Saurav and Hissam, right, on how you go about doing something like that. So Saurav, you can go first.
Yeah, maybe I can go first. So this is a tough question, but this is I think one of the biggest principles of consulting. So earn trust, right? So you have to really earn trust of your clients. So I think the way we have earned trust with clients, and after I joined Capgemini, there has been a plethora of new clients, right, for Capgemini in the space. So two, three things, right? So first, so when you establish a trust with the customer, it goes through a life cycle, right? So initially they will trust you based on the initial set of interactions that they see, right? So and the way we bring out our expertise, the way we bring out our knowledge to them and demonstrate them over multiple interaction sessions that we are having builds that trust, and that's the initial trust. But when the project actually kicks off, there is still a lot of skepticism on either side, right? So the client also knows that, okay, these guys came and sold me something, are they going to deliver? And we also know that, yeah, the client said that they are going to like give us commitment in terms of maybe people and process, but is it really going to work? So I think the first 2 months is very critical, where I think the leaders have to be extremely engaged on both sides, and they have to be very true to each other. If there are problems, then they have to call it out, and just say that these are the problems. But the key thing is how you solve the problem. So there has to be a lot of collaboration, so that all the blockers that are there in the initial 2 to 3 months, and there will be, right? So I have never engaged with a customer afresh where there has not been a blocker, and they can be hashed out easily, right? Collaboratively solve them and then plan for the future. So I think that is very critical, right? So earning trust over the phases, starting with the sales phase, then the initial engagement, and then continuing over a period of time, right? So we have engaged with customers who are like has been our customers for 10 years, right? It's like a marriage, right? You are married to the customer for 10 years, but you have to keep nurturing the relationship, right? So it's like you cannot just lose focus on the client because you have been with the client for 10 years, right? You just cannot take them granted. So it's always like day one. So whenever I go to a client, whenever I'm in a client meeting, maybe I'm talking to the client for 10 years, but I'm always well prepared, right? So what they are going to ask for, if they're expecting some document, so that has to be perfect. There should not be any glitches in those and stuff like that, right? So I would say earning trust is one of the most critical properties that a consultant should have, and that comes through a series of efforts, right? So you have to be really, really very conscious about the customer's expectations and work hard towards it.
Excellent. Earning trust. I love it. All right, Hissam, your view? Because you've seen consultants on the other side of the table. I'm sure you have dealt with a lot of consultants, right?
Hizam, do you trust me?
I do, yes. Yeah, I think building on what Saurav shared, I think what I have seen so far, in terms of ability to kind of build that relationship, especially in the AI ML space, because it's a new space. There are a few things that I have found helpful. One is effective project management. Because the projects by nature are a little bit more complicated, when you can demonstrate that organized way of approaching the project, where you are kind of making progress, where things are stuck, and being really open and upfront about that. Oh, for example, we thought that we were going to build this UI in this setting, but this, the complexities are now telling us that we should use a different environment. So we need to, kind of go back and redesign it. So having that open conversation, because both the client and us know that, okay, this is a niche space, but that combined with effective project management will give a sense of comfort to the client that, okay, we're making process, we are going to get the deliveries, and because it's a collaborative environment, then we can do kind of a back and forth to make sure that what is delivered is up to client expectation. And the last part that I would add to this mix would be kind of ensuring that the client will receive the knowledge, the training that is needed. Oftentimes in the industry, they would like to make sure that knowledge, that work becomes an institutional knowledge, and that will go a long way, because then the client, the next time, they will come to you and they say that, hey, we want to do this project. So I feel like that's how we kind of become as my manager always talks about this concept of trusted advisor. That's how you become a trusted advisor. The client knows that, okay, A, not only you deliver, B, you also enable them to kind of be able to operate and efficiently for that functionality. And in this space, they can work with you and they can build a deeper relationship. So those are some of the elements.
Excellent. I think all great points, and really relevant in establishing yourself as a leader in the consulting space, right? So one of the points that you touched upon, Hissam, and even you, Saurav, right? You talked about trust a lot, right? Building trust, building credibility, all of that. And I think that, as part of that building trust exercise, sometimes you also have to give the bad news. Yeah, it's not always about giving them the good news. Sometimes you also have to give them the bad news, right? Because something blew up, something failed, something did not pan out according to plans. So I'm going to point this question to the rest of the panelists, and then Wallace, maybe you can answer it. Like, as a client, how did you appreciate bad news being delivered from a consultant, right? So maybe again, Rajesh, hopefully your earphone is working. Maybe you can start up, and then we can go from you, Tej, and then Wallace. Rajesh? No?
No, he's still not working.
Okay. All right. Tej, why don't you go?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that Rajesh is having all this audio problem. I hope all of us are okay.
Yeah.
So the points what you talked about, I think my previous panelists, both Saurav and Hassan, talked about trust, and I think building on that, being in consulting and driving towards that, it's the most important thing. And I think what we can do as a valued partner, or to the to our customers, is figure out what is the best way to bring outside in perspective and delivering a value which is differentiating. Sorry, I'm getting distracted with some messages. So I think building trust is all about how can you bring outside in perspective, bring value in a differentiating way which they cannot think of. And some of the earlier panelists, Arindam, you also talked about it, that we are uniquely positioned as a consultant, because when you work for a bank or when you work for an insurance company, you have a very narrow tunnel vision of ways of working within that organization. You have limited focus within how and what you try to achieve. But when we work in a consulting company, we get exposed to banks in North America, banks in Europe, banks in Asia, and banks in UK. That means we have a different perspective, what is working, what is not working. and we are uniquely positioned because now we can extract what potentially could be working in one part of the bank or a sector of banks or region of the banks and bring it to the other side and bring that relevance. And I think that cross uh, pollinization, what we could bring to the table, that can allow us to be differentiating and delivering the trust as well as value for them.
Okay, very good. Wallace, your view?
Yeah. So I can discuss this topic from a client perspective, since I worked in the industry, and we worked with a lot of different consulting companies, and a lot of times when we have tough problems, we tend to go to the folks that we know, right? You want to go to the folks that you have worked in the past, that has delivered in a very tough situations, and I want to work with the people that have a system in place, so that even though the problem may be tough, they have a certain way of solving these problems, and it's methodical, and that they would give you the options up front. So these are the options, these are the risks, and they completely be upfront with you and tell you all aspects of different options. So I think as a client, those are really the things I would look for in a good consulting company.
Okay, very good. And I think Wallace, you also kind of, so indirectly what you're also talking about is the reputation of the consultant, right? So every time you're doing work as a consultant, I think my advice to the entire hacker community is that you're actually building up a reputation, right? And these clients, they tend to move around. If they work with a good consultant, they don't want to go find another consultant if they already have somebody that they trust. And this capital of trust and reputation that you build up over the years always follows you around, right? So definitely encourage people to network, keep in touch with your clients even if your project is done. you know Keep an eye out on whether they're moving around, across the industry. Build relationships, right? That's kind of the other piece of advice that I'd like to share. Anyway, so we have a question from Kaylin. That's a great question. uh, how do you encourage your team in the face of disagreement and adversity? Maybe I'll ask Rajesh if he's got audio working.
Can you guys
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So, I mean, I think this is a really hard question to answer, and it sort of depends on the chemistry of the team that you have a lot. But I really think that it makes sense to get people together. I think we've gotten to a point where we don't get together enough. One idea might be to actually get together and basically give people a chance to air their opinions and not drown them if they have something that's contrary to the way that we're thinking about it, right? And I think many times that's what people expect. They don't expect us, or at least the people that work on our teams, at least from a leader perspective, I don't expect that what one person is saying is going to be implemented as is. They want an airing of what they're basically talking about. And I think that I expect the same from my leaders as well. And I don't want my idea to be adopted at all times. I just want it to be heard at all times. So that's what I've been trying to do, is just make sure that I'm hearing the various opinions, especially the ones that might actually be untoward or unpopular to start off with, and then sort of let it actually percolate over time. And once that person gets many people kind of weighing in on that without actually being offensive or combative or whatever it is, it kind of lets things resolve itself in many situations properly, or to that person's satisfaction, I think.
All great points, Rajesh. Thank you. Thanks. We have another question from the audience. What is the one choice you wish you had avoided?
That's specific to Tej. So yeah, but that is
Yes.
That's
Tej,
interesting.
you are the one who had a lot of choices, right? So
Oh, that's good. So this is an interesting point. A choice I wish I would have avoided. It's a tough one. If you would have asked me other way around, that's easy, right? Choice I would have taken, that's a different thing. Choice I would have avoided. Maybe, I may sound theoretical, but I would say that, there is no shortcut. So every time you feel that, doing enough or just bare minimum, and that is the choice. In places, maybe I turn back, look back, and think that, I try to do something bare minimum, and then, it goes over. I think that is something, I would avoid, and I always try to avoid. At least I try to, deliver something which can set an example, not only for myself but for others also. So I think, doing bare minimum is the choice I would look back and avoid.
Excellent. Thank you, Tej. The next question is, as leaders, what characteristics make you take notice of up and coming talent? Great question. Maybe Hissam?
Sure. Actually, that's one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys. One characteristic that I really, pay attention to, especially for our, early career talent, is their openness to trying new things. When you're at the beginning of your career, you don't know what is blockchain. You don't know maybe what is ESG. You don't know what is, a lot of other names and acronyms that are out there. So somebody tells you that, hey, do you want to work on this or do you want to do that? What I have seen is that there are, talented individuals who are open. They said, you know what, I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, I want to help, right? That is really important. I think that will be a very strong, I would say, opening for you to become an effective leader. So take advantage of opportunities that knock on your door, even though sometimes, some of the most unique opportunities that have happened to me during my career or even my education have happened in things that I had no idea about, including, when I, got my PhD. I had no idea what I'm getting into. And when I did it, in retrospect, I said, wow, this was amazing. So really be open and, take advantage of that. That will help you to, kind of advance in your career and kind of help others and be more effective in your leadership.
Very good. That definitely makes a lot of sense. We have another question. Yep. Can you guys see the question, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe Saurabh, take this one.
Yeah, I can. So basically, if someone is starting off and is looking at getting into a leadership role at some point in the career, so it's a journey, right? So it's not that suddenly one day we become a leader. But there are 3-4 things I think which are very critical to become a leader. Number one, it's very important to be a great team player, right? So you are only as successful as your team members. So that's the biggest principle that you have. Second is you have to be curious and you have to constantly learn, right? So technology, world, everything is changing very fast. And as leaders, if we don't learn, we cannot lead a team, right? So that's the second thing that I would say. And third thing is basically taking ownership, right? So see, in my career, as a leader and a non-leader, I have made mistakes, but I have always owned up to it. I have just said that, yeah, this was my mistake, right? So it's very, very critical that you understand that you will make mistakes. You have to own that mistake and you have to learn from that mistake. So if you have these 3 properties, I think there is no stopping.
Yeah, to summarize in 3
Awesome.
words, I think what Saurabh was saying is for leadership, it's pretty simple, right? 3 things you need. One is passion, one is teamwork, and one is, your skills.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Do you have any other questions, folks?
Work-life balance.
Work-life balance. That's a good one.
Yes, it's a good one.
Wallace?
What balance?
It depends on what you mean by balance, right? So basically, if sleeping 4 hours a day is balance, then it's balance.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I think I personally I love working. I love what I do. So when you really love what you do, you don't really feel stressed a lot of times, or wishing that you were someplace else. And I think the key to the work-life balance is to find something that you truly passionate about.
Great point.
So one thing that I'd add to that is basically when we think about work-life balance, I think there's just a lot of worry about work in the middle of life. But I really think that make some time in the middle of work for your life as well, to be at your kids' events, or I mean, you guys are really young, but be it things that are happening with your parents and your siblings and so on and so forth. Because I think there's that latitude to do that in today's world that didn't exist before, right? There's plenty of time in the middle of your workday where you can actually be present for important life events. Take advantage of that is what I would say.
Great point, Rajesh. Okay, folks, I think we are almost at time. We have 2 more minutes, and then we have the networking session right after this, right? Where I think some of the participants can network, ask more questions, if you will. But I really enjoyed this panel conversation. I had promised the panelists that it would be like a chat, and it truly was. I wish we were all in one place and we could do this face to face. But this is the second best thing. 5 of my favorite leaders in Capgemini, and I'm glad that you guys got to hear from them today. And we will see you again, in one of the subsequent sessions. Rashmili, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So that was a super panel indeed. So thanks again, all of you, for your time and your wisdom and your techniques. I guess quote of the day is from Wallace, "What's balance?" But all in all, thank you so much again. We really, really appreciate it. So as Arindam just mentioned, and Hackers, as I mentioned at the beginning, 4 out of our 6 panel participants are judges tomorrow for the various tracks. And all of these folks will be at the networking event starting in just a few minutes. So make sure you join and get additional insights for your final solution. They're here to help you. So you can find that event link on Discord and anything else that you need. So see you in just a few minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.